that an existing water line on that bridge that we're replacing?
Yes, that is an existing water line on the bridge. We have two crossings of the Niagara River, and we want to make sure that if we were to lose one, that we had a backup. These lines are getting older.
We have the subaqueous up to the north, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. That's gonna go a lot.
Right. So this is to make sure that we don't lose water supply to West County.
Thank you. On that same one, I guess I'm really hoping that we're not going to do away with the line that's already there. So I read it as either add another line or whether it's paralleling it or subaqueous, but there's nothing wrong with the current line. So I really don't want them to give us a proposal that says remove the existing line and put in a 24-inch. And then, I'm sorry, but there's some conflict, because in some places it says it's a 12-inch line, and then when you look at the other place, it says it's a 16-inch line, and they want to go to a 24. So which is it?
I believe we're looking at a 24 there.
No. What is it now? Is it 16 or 12? Okay.
I'm
So
not sure.
The subaqueous, I think the subaqueous is a 12, I believe, it is over to the river, way to the north.
But, all right, but how the, I mean, it's a little bit sloppy, because how the proposal reads is it's in one place it's a 12 and in one place it's a 16. So let's get that tight. And what I really don't want them to even consider is getting rid of the existing line, whatever size it is, but adding to it. So yes, there's redundancy and there's increased capacity. I don't think there's anything wrong with the existing line. Is that correct? This is just about increasing capacity?
This is to, make sure that if we did have problems, we've got to replace it. It's redundancy issues.
Okay, great. But how it reads is you're asking for a proposal and you're going to pay them to give you 3 different scenarios, one of which is doing away with the existing line. I wouldn't even have that in the proposal. I mean, does that make sense?
Make that clear.
Yeah, okay, so, right, there's 3 options that are in this.
The only problem we might run into is there's weight limitations on bridges, and it may be that you cannot exceed a weight limit and have to replace a line. But I agree with you, we shouldn't be looking at replacing that line. We should be looking at another line to augment the system.
Right, even if it means the line, and I don't know if it runs on the, after our big workshop 2 days ago, is this being worked into that whole plan? I mean, I just don't want to make sure, I want to make sure we're doing something that's part of what you'd be doing anyway.
We have some capacity issues in that area, that is taken into consideration.
And F6, 7, and 8, I appreciate the fact that it's clearly stated that all of that is funded by the 2014 sales tax extension, right there. F9, I've been to the event center recently. I don't know that those chairs are in such bad shape. Why are we, I see us spending a couple $100,000. Where's that money coming from? And, is it really necessary that we spend those dollars? I mean,
Commissioner, it is budgeted in the capital budget. And those were chairs that were used in the tentatorium, if you recall that, and then they were put into storage during the construction of the event center. They came out of storage in pretty rough shape with some rust and mold. We had to take the backing, the hardened backing out of them and discard it. We couldn't even clean that. So they've continued to deteriorate due to use primarily in that air conditioning building, because first of all, we had to more or less cannibalize the chairs. Now the glides are on the bottoms of the chairs, which were designed for hard surface in the tentatorium, have been tearing and marking and damaging the carpets as they've deteriorated. So it's just a general deterioration with rust on the legs. It was time to change them to 10 years old.
okay, well, I mean, maybe they're just bringing out the best ones. I haven't seen examples of chairs in really bad shape. So if you did an overview of them, I mean, are 300 or 400 of them, or half of them still in pretty good shape? I mean, because we go to events there all the time, and the ones that they set up, you're talking about the freestanding chairs that get set up, they don't seem to be in terrible shape. And then what's going to happen to all of these? You're just giving them back to the company, or are we going to sell them?
We investigated that, and there's no salvage value. They're not in good enough shape for salvage. They will be discarded.
Well,
That comes out to about $100 a chair, and we had a very elaborate and extensive vetting process on the type of chair to get the right chair for durability, value.
do we have photographs of those chairs we're buying? I mean, do we know exactly what we're getting for this?
Procedures. We think we can get a fair amount of money. It's a CG parcel, might be suitable for a gas station, something like that. So in the process of putting together a package, we're hard to get the most money we can.
Need a breakfast place over there, it's across the street from the church, you know?
And whatever comes back, if and when it comes back, we can always turn it down if it's not appropriate. Thank you.
And we're gonna do things properly. We're going to have a number that people are aware of when we bid, and that'll give them the target to shoot for. We're not gonna hold them to the highest number. If they want to exceed it, they're welcome to do that. If they want to come close, they're welcome to do that. But we'll do things properly.
Very good.
Community Services has 2 items.
We have 2 items. The first one is the funding agreement with Inglewood Waterfest with the not-to-exceed amounts that you directed at last meeting. One point that I wanted to highlight, there is a discrepancy between the amount that was presented and approved for Charlotte County Fire EMS and what the actual amount was. We're working through that with Inglewood Waterfest. We have a meeting on Monday where we're going to discuss that. We told them this is the amount that was approved by the board, and anything above and beyond that, they'll either need to fund themselves or come back and discuss with you.
Can I just comment on that? As far as I'm concerned, you hit the nail on the head because we made a direction based on the numbers that we had. So that's where I hold the line. I know Commissioner Constance holds the line at a different point because we had that conversation at our last meeting. I also wanted to talk
They're well aware of that.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about funding source. And we'll have this discussion around in a second here, but I want everybody to be considering to have a conversation about funding source and BP money versus general fund, whether it's in part or in whole.
Well, I can give you a heads up, I will be calling you, so you'll have that.
Oh, I know it's coming off. I'm gonna pull it too, so I'm last, but I didn't have to worry about pulling it.
Before you.
The second one is a resolution authorizing temporary use of golf carts for Waterfest as defined in the map that was attached to the resolution.
Commissioner Pruitt.
No problem with the resolution, but the hours of operation, in here it says sunrise to sunset, then specifically limits them to certain hours, 9 to 6 and 10 to 5 or 6 or something like that. That's when the events start. Is there any way they can start at like 7 o'clock and go? They need hours for, I'm asking legal, I'm just looking at you, Tommy. You're the recipient of my wrath today.
Commissioner, this is the hours that they requested.
Okay, because I'm talking to the guys that are running this, I mean, they're doing a lot of the legwork and labor and all that, and they need time to set up, and they start at 9, they need carts before 9 o'clock. So if legal doesn't have a problem with it, I'd like to see this go from, and I just had this discussion this morning, by the way, from at least 7 in the morning to 1 or 2 hours after the event's over. They will have street legal golf carts. So they'll be lighted, brakes, the whole 9 yards is what they're planning on using. If that, as long as that's okay. I think,
Just need the specific hours, 7 to.
go 7 to, let's see, 7 to 8 or 9 or something, 7 to 9. About 7 to 9. Okay. They have to use, well, no, but a couple hours before and a couple hours after for cleanup and prep for the next day and such, so that's okay. Thank you.
Moving on, next section, human.
Program. This was already approved by as a subset of the annual report that came to the board about a month and a half ago. But this is a special funding year, and Port Housing Finance Corporation is requiring a separate and distinct closeout report and authorization for the chair to sign that certification. And then the other part of that is to make some adjustments in the numbers that they give us the opportunity to reflect actual costs. Second item is to bring back the item from the last meeting regarding the Punta Gorda Housing Authority agreements for the SHIP fundings for verandas 1 and 2. We've met with all the commissioners, I think except for one, and provided any additional information. we're asking the board to approve them and authorize the secretary to sign.
No questions? The next section, Commissioner?
And the agreement's got a lot of conditions.
Like, when we'd like to buy your property on.
Oh, no. At the concern about getting ourselves into some muddy water, they're two separate distinct.
I know, it would be nice though.
They're, it'd be wonderful.
That'd be a separate agreement, separate agenda for another day.
Together, again,
Maybe they'll remember our kindness of doing this.
Well, I think they're absolutely two separate issues, and we can't really discuss one in reference to the other. However, if we're doing this, there's a spirit of cooperation. If we're doing this, you know, we're crafting, and I'm glad we're crafting agreements. I really want to make sure that everybody understands I appreciate the attorney's office and working with Mr. Hebert to make sure that we have things that will hold people's and entities' feet to the fire, because in the past, I think that we basically played fast and loose, and that they basically come with their hands out and said, we want this, and we say, okay, and there really aren't any defining documents prescribing how they need to go forward, and that they absolutely need to perform, and if they don't perform, there are issues that occur that affect the taxpayer. And so we want to make sure that if we're giving out money through these programs, that they are meeting the requirements, because otherwise the money gets put back in and then we wind up holding the bill. And so I don't want to see that happen anymore. But I will review this one more time, and I may still pull it on Tuesday. So thank you.